Welcome, everyone, to the premiere of Season 4, The Energy That Surrounds Us. So, without further ado, while my little ones go chase a squirrel, I will in turn share with you all the new intro, which I'm sure you all have been waiting for. So, here we go.
Wow. That was really cool. I love it.
Thank you. So, real quick before I get into it with my amazing guest, full transparency, she asked me to plug myself, so I'm going to do it.
Yay.
So, have patience with me. This is new for me, but I am just going to share the new background. I hope you all will enjoy it this season. And as of December of last year, I did complete all 4 books of the Awakening series. They are available on Amazon. So please go and pick up a copy of the book. They are very interesting, and each book has a different aspect of myself and has different um, illustrations or pictures in it. So they're all a little different. So with that, I will tell you, if you go on Amazon, search my name. I do have an author's page, and all the books are listed there. So thank you for your continued support. And without further ado, I am going to turn it over to my amazing guest who we met towards the middle to the end of season 3. And afterwards, we agreed and set up to be the premiere episode. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the one, the only amazing, super knowledgeable Rahjeena.
Aw, that's so kind. I'm so proud of you, Michael, to have done your books like that and have them out there, and I wish you so much success. I really do. So this year is the right year for you to be putting yourself out there, and numerology, astrology, um, Chinese astrology, everything is pointing to this is the year to come out and be you. So this is like perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Very cool. And so, one of the new things with season 4 that many of you may have noticed if you were looking at the thumbnails, as well as the new background is on the thumbnail. But on the bottom is a list of topics. And so I will not guarantee we will hit all of those topics, but please let me know in the comments if you like having that information available in that format. And with that being said, Rahjeena had a really amazing idea for a topic, and that was alchemizing 2026, the new year. So, can you share with people how a normal everyday person can do alchemy and alchemize the year to get what they want?
Well, alchemy goes through several stages. The alchemy that I'm referring to is the Jungian alchemy, and that his particular form of alchemy goes through 4 stages. Um, but before we even get into that, we should be talking about what 2026 means for everybody, why this is a good time for people to choose themselves. And alchemy is about change. Uh, it does go through the stages. There's 4 stages. So there's, a stage where you face all your shadows and you burn them away. But we'll go through that. First of all, the year that we're going into, well, the year that we're leaving is a year number 9 in numerology. And the year that we're going into is a year of 1. So that particular year means that you have a good opportunity to be focusing on yourself, changes you need to make, healing you need to do. Last year was a good year for ridding yourself of things that inhibited you or stop your path, or things that were no longer serving you, things that were no longer good for you. You know, ending addictions, working on yourself, grabbing your will back to do what's good for yourself, what you can do to build yourself. So that's what 2026 is all about. And that's in the numerology year. Now, on top of that, we're going into the Chinese New Year of the fire horse, and we're leaving the wood snake. Okay. So the fire horse is all about charging ahead. It's about momentum. It's about creating and using the force of fire to create. Fire is all about energy and passion. And, when you use that element behind your creations, you can really create some absolutely stunning things in your life. And that's what that's all about.
So, I'm sure you've been asked this, and I am not a numerologist, and it's, to be honest, a lot of it. It's like I get the basic numbers a little bit, but I'm curious, why is there no 0?
Because 0 is empty. There is no 0. 0 is an empty number. That's why, some people, I can remember some really bad people when I was growing up, that would literally pick on kids, that, you know, didn't fit in with any of the other cliques or groups. Really sad that they would pick on somebody like that. And you see adults doing the same thing. Adults that haven't worked on themselves and are still very emotionally stunted, like they were still back in high school or junior high. And they would call people a 0. They would, I can remember my brother calling people a 0. It's just awful. And that means they're basically a loser, a nothing, you know? So I don't know why numerology doesn't include a zero, but it just doesn't. It has master numbers, but it does not include zeros. You add the numbers, and you can't add a zero. You eliminate the zero and you add the numbers. So there's like a process to numerology.
Right, like 10 would be 1.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was curious because we'll hear the world started in year 0, but then there's no numerology 0, so it's like, did numerology not start when we started?
Right, right,
So
right.
that's where I was curious about it with. And another thing that I'm curious with, as you mentioned, going into the fire horse year, what can people look forward to happening in their lives? Is there stuff that we should start preparing for that the universe is bringing in because of the fire horse, or are we still calling the shots, so to speak, of what's coming our way?
I'm not going to get into any predictions about what might be happening politically or out in the world, even though I do know some things. I have had some downloads, and I have had some channeling, and yeah, I know a few things that are going to happen, but I don't want to go there. I want to stress that this is a year for people to focus on themselves. Last year, I could tell you this much. Last year being the year where people were supposed to like face their shadows and be rid of things in their life that weren't good for them. If they didn't go deep within and work on themselves or decide to last year, that the benefits that are coming this year for people, because this year of 1 is also bringing benefits to people, with their creativity, with their, ability to step out of where they were before, their ability to create. They can pretend, and there are people that spiritually bypass or are spiritually narcissistic. They won't be able to go very far, if at all, during this year of 1, if they didn't do their work last year in the year of 9. So, they can choose to use this year to focus on themselves and really do the inner work that they didn't do last year. But the benefits of the numeral 1 that are coming for the people that already did their work, they won't really be able to enjoy that.
Thank you. And that's actually what I was looking for. So thank you for that.
Okay.
So, another question I am feeling confident people probably ask you a lot is about vessel preparation and internal hygiene. And is there a best way to start that? And when is the best time to start that practice?
The best time to start that practice is right now. I mean, if you're trying to start a spiritual practice, or if you're starting to want to do spell casting, to make things in your life, easier, to bring things to you, it's always a very needed thing to keep your vessel clean. I mean, it's not only about, though, taking ritual baths, or cleaning your space, or doing things like that. This is, something that I believe, and this is why I believe in the alchemy, that you need to do to make the inside of your vessel clean, and if you don't do that, you can cleanse all you want and put on robes and do your work, and you will get some results. I'm not saying that you won't get results if you don't work on yourself. Of course you will. But if your vessel isn't clean, if you haven't done your work inside to really be a balanced person, then when you're talking to the spirits and you're working with the spirits, you're not a clean conduit, and what you might think you are receiving in the spirit world, or what you might think you're dealing with, might be a projection of yourself. I mean, and the reason I say that is people that are toxic, people that haven't worked on their, emotional trauma from when they were young, and then they get into wanting, this spirituality. They get into wanting to do magic. They get into, wanting to go to these places. It could be that they unconsciously seek power and control, and they don't even realize this. If you are a person, an everyday person, and you are projecting your shit onto other people, and your relationships suffer for it, if you even have any, right? And you don't even realize. Projection is about not realizing that you're throwing your trauma and your bad stuff inside onto other people, and you're saying that they are what you are. Okay, so if you don't even know the difference of that, and you try to do spell casting, magic, spiritual practices that open you up to things, right? You're always working with spirits. Okay, sometimes you're working with them whether you know it or not. But what you're going to be receiving, what you're going to be absorbing and receiving, may only be a projection of what you think it is and not the real thing, because you do this in life as well. And that's why it's important, in my opinion, for people to also do inner work, either alongside of or even before they start messing around with things that they shouldn't mess around with, if they don't want to fall into depression, mental illness, whatever, So
Yeah, it's like we grew up with the adage, careful what you ask for.
exactly. And there's a lot of, people in the community, and magicians, and, grimoire magicians, and, they call people like me a reductionist, because they think I'm reducing magic to psychology, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm a pluralist, excuse me, and I put everything together, you know? And the way I feel about that is spirits are real. I've worked with them long enough, 40, I hate to say it, but probably about 45 years. I've had my first spirit encounter when I was 7. So, and I'm 60 now, so you do the math. So, it's like, that's a long time to be having spirit connection. And I can tell you from my own experience that there's times I went through in my life where I wasn't right, and I needed to work on myself, and I had a whole lot of trauma. And does it muddy the waters? Does it make things, happen that can drag you down further emotionally or mentally? Indeed, it can. And it could also make you even more spiritually narcissistic, because you think something's happened that isn't happening, and a lot of people don't see that. So, there are a lot of people who who actually frown upon those of us in the community, and there are more like me, who suggest that working on yourself, even if it's therapy, because therapy and shadow work are two different things. Therapy with a licensed professional therapist is one thing and can be highly needed. And shadow work is something completely different, and I think both of them are something that is needed in combination, you know, um, for a lot of people, because nobody's going to come out of their childhood or several relationships or even one relationship that failed without baggage. That doesn't happen, and it causes people to create blocks and walls and ways of relating to other people that are toxic. That's just the way it is. Now, do you want to deal with spirits in a toxic state? Would you call a king with a broken trumpet? No, you sure wouldn't, right?
No.
You would want to call a spirit as a clean vessel, as somebody that says, my heart is clean. And the spirit knows this. And it also knows when it isn't. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And one thing I'm kind of curious about, and your take on, is in the metaphysical world, we have a term called the dark night of the soul,
Yeah.
where the shadow work takes hold, and it's like, you're going to work on it now. No questions asked. Sorry. And I can't help wonder, though, if when we say dark night of the soul, if people all of a suddenly will start to go, oh, I have to do this really dark thing. It's going to be really bad. And it may not be. But I'm wondering if our verbiage in calling it a dark night is kind of, like you're saying, putting a projection over what's going to happen. And we may need to rephrase that and change that verbiage.
I love that because that is part of what I teach my clients as well. And it's something that I did. Um, First of all, this is a lot to unpack what you just said, which is good. So let me start unpacking it. So, not everybody that's going through bad shit in their life um, is able to even recognize that they need to do work on themselves when they're going through it. A lot of people are really like bitter and resentful, and they're like, why is this happening to me? But they always turn it around and blame it on someone or something else. And these are people that are highly toxic, pretty high on the spectrum of narcissism. They're not able to self-reflect. They're not able to be self-aware, and it's always someone else's fault. And these people do not grow. They do not take accountability or responsibility for their part in anything. And they might say to somebody later down the road when there was consequences, I'm sorry, but these I'm sorries are also filled with pointing the finger right back. It's a fake sorry. It's a sorry so I can control you again. It's a sorry so I can have you back in my energy again. But and when that doesn't work, then they really blow up. Okay, then they're ugly really comes out, and they start attacking and smear campaign and the whole 9 yards. So that is the first part of what you said, how some people don't even see it. Okay. Those people I feel sorry for, really, because they will never grow and they end up becoming old and bitter and resentful. And they end up, they don't have good relationships. They don't have, they might have an enabler as a partner who just ignores the way they act or either supports them in the way they act. So they have that, but they many times lose the love of their children. Their children don't want to be around them at some point. You know, they lose family members. And they can't keep a relationship with friends or coworkers. You know, they always have complaints about these people. They don't look at themselves. So the other part of that is that, yes, there are some people that do see this as a shitty situation. And I'm going to change this dark night of the soul. I'm telling myself this is a dark night. This must be a dark night of the soul because this is horrible, right? And then, you know, going through something that's horrible is usually what I call a tower. You know, I always refer back to the tarot, right? The tower card. And, you know, that's when everything is collapsing, or at least some big parts of your life are. You know, you might lose your job. You might lose your home. You might get evicted. You might lose your relationship. You know, something really big happens to change the trajectory of your life, right? Maybe a whole gang of people are trying to destroy you. I've had that happen too. You know, people do that out of jealousy and envy. And I've had my own, you know, family that adopted me do that for decades, you know, and I smile about it because good luck. It didn't work, you know, but the thing is, the reason these things don't work and the reason that things don't keep us down is when we are able to self-reflect, when we are able to take responsibility for our part in whatever it is. And even if we weren't in, you know, it's not my responsibility that somebody's envious and jealous of me and wants to destroy me because they can't be me and they don't want to see me succeed, right? That's their garbage. That's their toxic, right? But I can reframe that. So when you were saying you can change your verbiage of what you know, the word or the you know, the shadow work of being, you know, in the dark night of the soul, you can say, what is this teaching me? What does this horrible situation that I'm going through, do I have to learn from this? And then you can tell yourself, I don't want to be injured by this inside. I don't want to be, I don't want to turn this on to other people. I don't want to become bitter and resentful and then lash out at other people or not trust other people anymore or think that everybody's this way and put everybody in a box, because that is when life, you become wrong in life, when you put everybody in the same box, right? You put a wall up around yourself at that point, and you can no longer generate energy right when you are protecting yourself in that way. And that's magically too. You know, I've seen people that over protect themselves, and then none of their magic that they do for positive things even has room to work because they're so protected that they're blocking every spirit out that's there to assist them, or that wants to assist them, or that will assist them. You know what I mean?
I
So
do.
that's what you do, Michael. If a person feels like they're going through something really hard, the first thing they should be asking is, what's my part in this? And the second, and then really go within and self-reflect on that and admit that to yourself at least. This was my part in this. This is what I really did. And I forgive myself. I'm not the same person anymore, and I'm letting this go. Even if the other person never hears an I'm sorry, it's not for the other person, it's for yourself. Okay. And after you do that, then what did I learn from this? Did this give me more strength? Did this teach me more about discernment? Did this teach me that I am so resilient that these people can't break me? Did this make me love myself more because they wouldn't love me? So I had to learn to love and trust myself. You see what I'm saying?
I do, and it gets me thinking about magic because I think of magic with the K, not the C. And to me, when people ask me about magic, I say, to me, the greatest magic I have is I can walk into a room, someone's having a really bad day, just sit down next to them, just talk to them. And when I
Mm-hmm.
get up and walk away, they are smiling, feeling so much better. I'm like, that's the magic to me. It's not about, making a rabbit appear out of a hat or, making a pile of money appear in my hand out of thin air. I'm like, that's all illusion to me. To me, the real magic is when I can make a positive impact on someone without sitting down and going in my head and going, okay, let's fix this person. Because that's where I think the disconnect is. So, do you feel like that's magic or is that something else?
I feel like that's a gift of your personality and that's a gift of your energy, and what kind of a person you are. Um, magic is real magic isn't just poof, I have money in my hand. Magic is working with spirits. Magic is working with materia, working with, different aspects like sigils and stuff like that. Um, I think real magic has a lot to do with I do work with a lot of ancient grimoire magic, and I also work with folk magic as well, and that's a different story. But what you're talking about is a part of your personality and your energy that is a special part that not everybody has. And I'm not going to, some people will say, "Oh, you're an empath." Well, I don't really um, like that term because a lot of people have overused it, and a lot of toxic people have adopted it to try and use it to hide that they really aren't an empath. So, what I think is actions speak louder than words, right? And a person's behavioral patterns speak louder than what they're claiming to be as well. And people can sit there on top of a building and say I'm an empath till their face turns red, but if they aren't doing uh, the things that you're
Service.
describing, right, then they're not. So what you're describing is a very special form of being able to relate to people, and that's part psychological too. It's not just energy, it's psychological, it's your personality, it's, something that is from who you are as a child, you know, because I'm sure you were like this even as a child, that people were comfortable in your presence. And when you're able to give space to people like that, when you're not trying to fix them, and you're just listening to their, they are easy to open up to you. They are easy to speak to you. They feel comfortable with your presence, that you're not going to judge them, that you're not going to, try to tell them what to do, then you are a person that has an ability, a very special ability to reach people. And so, what you're doing right now with your podcast, with your writing, I haven't done your astrological chart, but I'd be curious to see what your North Node is because um, that's part of what my north node is in Gemini. And so that's like all about communication. And that can be, in writing and speaking, and, it's communication. So yeah, I'd be interested. Sometimes we don't even know when we're growing up what our north node is, and then when you figure it out, you're like, oh, that's the way I was going all this time, and that's where I need to keep going. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And I happen to have a chart if I can find it. But in the meantime, you know,
Send
you
that to
talked
me.
about,
Send that to me. Send the chart to me when we're done, and
oh,
I'll look it over for you and give you some. Yeah, when we're done,
yeah,
send it to me.
sure. And, when you asked about me as a child, I don't have a lot of memories from my childhood. I think some of them have been blocked out because of stuff that was going on. But the one thing that I always remembered and always heard my parents say was I would not care about the cliques or who's friends with who. If I wanted to be friends with someone, I would just walk up, be like, "Hey, do you want to be friends?" It's almost like I would seek out the people who most people didn't want to be friends with, and I was like, "Hey, let's be friends." And it didn't matter
Okay,
male, female.
now I know. Now I know why you reached out to me in the beginning and asked me on your show a long time ago. What you just revealed to me is exactly like I was as a child. I did not belong to cliques, but I did reach out, and I knew like maybe a few people in each clique, and it was always the person that, you know,
Was
was
the
trying.
friendliest.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And but I never like hung with one particular person. So what this is telling me is you are part of my soul family. Hey, brother.
Oh,
Hey, brother. Yeah, because not everybody is like us. Not everybody is does that. There's most of the people that I knew growing up, and this includes my older siblings, were always, with the popular crowd, with the jocks, and like my brother, the football star, the quarterback, and
had to have
you
the
know
right clothes.
yeah, popular, trying to get with, the most popular, or girl in school, or hanging out with people that were popular or whatever. And that just was never my thing. That was like never my thing.
Mine
So
either. So, yeah, I can see why we gravitated towards each other.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And something that I'm finding interesting that a lot of people I don't think realize exists, but it does. And if they understood what it was, may help them. And that is the magical middle ground. And, why is it important that we're bringing it into 2026? And
Okay, so this is what Jung called the psychoid, the middle ground. Okay, so this is where your psyche meets the spirit. That's what Jung was talking about. Um, it's like a liminal space. It's an in-between space. And this is where your dreams can become portals, or you can astral travel in your dreams. And it's a very radiant space, um, where you can really release what you are, and and become one with spirit. And so that is what the middle ground is. And it's important because it's where the veil thins, it's where the veil thins. And when we're working with magic and spirits, it's a place where we want to be, we want to be able to access that. People split their lives. People split things into black and white, good and bad, mundane and magical. And there's nothing in this world that's black and white. There's, a lot of people are like, that person is evil, that person is good. And when you see people doing that, they're toxic, by the way, because everything in life is nuanced. Everything. There's nuance in every person. There's nuance in every circumstance. And, if somebody is saying, oh, this person, if they just come right out and they're like, this person is evil, why? Why are you saying that about somebody unless you can tell me what they've done that's evil? Okay. And in the perspective of somebody that's toxic, if they're not getting their way or they're not getting their control back that they want, they will say they'll point the finger, evil, bad, Not everybody is all bad and not everybody is all good. We are variable creatures that can flip back and forth, even if now I do believe that everybody has a core, a base. And I talked about this, probably in 2010 on Facebook, how the time was coming, and this was things I was channeling back then, how the time was coming that people were going to have to choose either consciously or unconsciously between a base of fear or a base of love. Okay. Fear is constrictive. Fear has all of if you look at the 7 deadly sins, that's all around fear. That's all controlled by fear. Okay. And all the attributes of love, are trust, joy. There's all the beautiful attributes go with that. But we're living a human existence. Okay. So within a human existence, we have the ability to choose and decide day by day how we're going to respond to certain things that come our way in life, how we're going to respond to frustrations, how we're going to respond to somebody yelling at us in a parking lot, how we're going to respond with somebody we live with that might not be treating us well, whatever it is. We have a day-to-day process to choose. Now, if we are not working on ourselves and we are not emotionally stable, and when you're not emotionally stable, you're not able to regulate your emotions. So you have a propensity to maybe blow up on people, for instance. And if that happens, but you still have the base of love, you will go back to that space and you will forgive yourself and you will forgive other people. And you will not have to necessarily tell the other person that you forgive them. But, that's not, like I said, forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for you. And it's not given to control or manipulate people. There are toxic people that will use, I said, I'm sorry, why can't you forgive me? And you're the one being bitter and you're being cold or whatever. It's a manipulation to get back into your energy. Okay. And so you have to learn the difference of that. And when you know yourself, when you've worked on yourself, really, and you've gotten to this position, you will see clearly, be able to discern other people's manipulations and what they're trying to do.
That's very true. And thank you for that. And I'm looking at something, and I'm like, in full transparency, I'm looking at the questions you sent, and I'm looking at number 13, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so fitting for number 13. And what I'm referring to for everyone is we were not sure how tonight was going to flow, so she sent me suggestions to because she's not feeling 100% so that we could keep on task. And I've been ad-libbing some of my own as well, which we agreed to. But I feel like 13, I feel like needs to be asked right now because we keep talking about magic and what it is and how to use it properly. And it says, you've said we use magic to call upon the other, but we use alchemy to ensure the call is not distorted by ego. Can you unpack that for us?
I kind of did earlier off of without even looking at my notes. Yeah, so if anybody wants to know, I've been taking Benadryl when I said I wouldn't. And so my mind is a little foggy, so I wanted to make sure that I had notes or questions to and the notes in order to fall back on. And I've only done that a few times. So, but I am looking at this now since you said the number. This is something we already just touched on not too long ago, but I'll go over it again. So when I'm talking about the call must be clean and we use magic to reach the other, I'm referring to spirits. The other is spirits.
Okay.
And it could be spirits on the other side, transition spirits. It could be angels, demons, whatever somebody is working with. Okay. And it's not my place to say you should or shouldn't work with whatever you're working with. Everybody is an adult and they can work with whatever they want to work with. But I am saying that if your ego, like I was talking about earlier, if you're not clean inside, if you're not clean inside and you're coming from a toxic place and you're coming from an ego-filled place and you're coming from a place where you project in life towards other people, you're going to do that with the spirits too. And you won't even know you're doing it. Because if you're so self-unaware that you don't know that you're projecting onto other people, then how are you going to be aware enough to know what you're calling or how you're calling another, a spirit, right?
That's very true.
So, your message will be distorted. Whatever you get back is going to be distorted. So, you've got ego-filled people out there that think, I'm an intuit, I'm a psychic, I'm, whatever. And they're trying to work with spirit to get information, right? Spirit ain't going to give them the right information. They're not a clean channel. They're not clean, and therefore what they're going to receive is either going to be distorted, warbled, or, there could be a spirit that will purposely give them the wrong information because they haven't worked on themselves. And I've seen that happen. So.
Well, thank you for that clarity. And that actually brings into question the other side of the topics that was on the thumbnail, and that is the inexplicable things.
Okay.
What does inexplicable things mean to you? And do you hold space or do you clear it out as soon as it comes into your frame of reference?
Inexplicable things and explicable things are things that you can't explain. So it's like when you've had a dream and the dream comes true, when and you could be having like the same dream and then the dream comes true. How do you explain that? It could be and I've had this experience when, I mean, some people even say, you know, when you're able to visually see a spirit, when you are able to raise a spirit and literally see it and interact with it, you know, a lot of people don't know how to explain that either, but it happened, right? I've had situations in my home where they were experienced by me and other people that were living in the home, that were unexplainable. And your second question of are you asking if I get rid of these things right after they happen, or what was the end part?
I was just meaning, like, if something came into your awareness, do you process it right away and then say, okay, done? Do you sit with it and say, well, what are you bringing to me? I'm just curious your process, because everyone's different. So I was curious how you handle them.
Well, even my husband will tell you, when strange things that are inexplicable have happened in my home while he's been here and experienced it with me, I am someone that is so used to having these things happen, that I can't even say that I'm affected by it. I might laugh at it, but I'm not one that's going to get all freaked out. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, oh no, I have to do an exorcism or something. I am not one like that. And it's funny, but there are a lot of people in the community that are spellcasters that are completely afraid of spirits. Like, they might work with god and goddesses of their preferred path or whatever, but when it comes to like spirits, they are literally in fear of it. And it's really hard for me to understand this, because if you're doing real magic, you're working with spirits. Okay. Everything has spirits. Like, they'll work with the spirits of roots and plants, and maybe they'll work with the spirits of stones and rocks or whatever. But when it comes to working with spirit, even if it's spirit of deceased, they're like afraid. They to the point of, I've heard some of them saying, I won't bring antiques in my house because I'm afraid that there's a spirit attached to it. And so no way am I going to bring in antiques in my house. I will not put a welcome mat in front of my house because it might welcome in spirits that I didn't want here, you know. And my thought about that is, it's so strange, because if you are the person you say you are, then why don't you trust yourself to know what kind of spirit it is, and have the enough belief in your own practices and your own energies that you know that you can protect yourself and get rid of whatever is there that doesn't belong there. I don't really understand that, but there are those out there, and even ones that call themselves experts and elders, you know, which is, I find really strange. So the other thing, okay, so I'm gonna tell you a little story, okay, and then I'll tell you how I dealt with it. Is that okay? Do we have time?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I know I told you about, I've been involved in witch wars, and you're like, well, I've never heard about that. I don't know what that is or whatever. And, you know, there's different types of witch wars, but the ones I'm referring to is when there's a witch here and a witch here, and they are very angry with each other, and they're literally throwing magic back at each other like pinball, right? They're going back and forth, ping pong. Okay. And, you know, they call me because they want me to jump in on their side and take it over and start doing some of my own magic, right? That opens the line to me from the other person that's throwing. So that means I'm going to get hit. That means that I'm like moving the energy so that that person over there that's throwing energy at this person over here, it actually starts coming at me. Okay. And I start deflecting and doing things. Okay. So I was involved in this witch war that was going on for like 6 months, ping pong, back and forth, back and forth. And it had to do over money. It was, my client was getting screwed. Okay. When there was promises made and all kinds of things. And it was a bad situation. So, whenever I'm doing stuff like this, I always tell my husband, I'm taking this job and this is going to be happening. And, I need to start putting some more protections up. I need to do some things. Right. And so he knew we were right in the throes of it. Okay. And one night we're sitting on our bed and it was probably around 3 something in the morning. We're awake. We're sitting up in bed. We're watching something on Netflix. Okay. And my closet, now I know people are going to say, but you live in California. It was probably an earthquake. It was not an earthquake. Okay. So we're sitting there and my closet was facing the bed, the closet door. Okay. On the closet door, I had placed a mirror there. And I had done, and some magicians again are going to say, oh no, here we go with the mirror magic again. And it doesn't, because it wasn't in their old grimoires, they think that, it's bullshit now. Well, I tell you that if you've been practicing for as many years as I have, and you have, used your own UPG, which is unverified personal gnosis, okay? You've created your own spell work, and you've, over a period of time, you've set it to planetary, the right planetary day, hour, the right, everything. And you keep notes. This is what I do. And, you figure out ways that actually work and work against some really bad people, So anyway, I had fixed this mirror as a trap. Okay. To trap whatever was being sent my way. And I knew they were going to be sending. All right. So we're sitting there and all of a sudden the entire closet starts shaking. Just the closet. Nothing else in my room. Nothing fell down because it wasn't an earthquake. It was just the closet door. And it was shaking violently. And my husband will back this up. And we heard literal scratches down the inside of the closet door, like there was a wild freaking animal in there. And if I was to say how big this animal was, it was probably the size of a big raccoon is the way it sounded. Okay. And I didn't react. I was like, oh, wow. Right. And my husband was like, what the hell? Right. And I said, just wait. And then it stopped. And I said, okay, get up and go to the closet and open the door and look in there. And he goes, hell no. I'm not going near that door. And I said, trust me, there's nothing inside of there. I promise you, you won't see anything. And he said, there's no way. There's some kind of animal in there. I don't want to open the door. I said, just trust me, open the door. So he opened it really slow and he was looking and he's like, there's nothing in here. And he said, there's no animal droppings. There's nothing. There's no hole. I said, yeah. I said, what you just experienced was the other person that conjured something and sent it over here. And it's in the mirror now. So tomorrow I need to extract it and put it into something and close it off and get rid of it. So that's one example of something happening that nobody would believe unless they were there and experienced it themselves, and there's been many, many like that living with me. And I can tell you that, when my husband got together with me, he wasn't a believer, and he would tell you that he wasn't, but he is now. And I can remember telling him, when he used to tell me, well, I'm not really a believer. I'm an atheist and I don't really believe in this stuff. And, and I said, and I hope that you stay that way. And I hope you never become a believer, because I guarantee you, if and when you start experiencing things that you can't explain, you are never going to be the same person you were before. And that's what happens. That's what happened.
Very true. And we're a little bit over the hour. Do you have time to go and ask a couple more questions, or do you need to go?
I don't need to go. Yeah, I can stay a little longer.
Okay.
Sure, ask me what you want.
One thing is, you talk about, I've noticed in some of your posts, around practicing golden thread mapping. What does that truly mean, and how does that going to help us or aid us, or is it going to help and aid us in 2026?
Okay, so I'm looking for this on my notes, but I don't see it, so I'm just gonna have to go on.
It's 22. I kind of morphed it a little bit.
Okay. So when you theoretically attach a gold thread to all the things that you've experienced in your life, that shows you the truth about the path that you have been on, and it's like connecting the dots of what you've went through. And in order to do this, again, you have to be somebody who's willing to take responsibility for your part, or have to be able to self-assess. You have to be able to have awareness of yourself. But once, if you have that, you're able to connect the dots of the things that have happened in your life. And with reframing, be able to come out and say, this happened because I needed to learn this, which gave me this quality. Now I have this quality. Now this other thing gave me this quality. And when you put all of that together and you reframe your wounds and your trauma into good things, this literally, following this path will literally show you what you should be doing in your life, what you need to be doing in your life to progress your spiritual self, your soul, your whatever you want to call it. It is what reveals what you should be doing.
So is that something that could be used to benefit some people who are sitting there and saying, I know what my soul's purpose, my soul's mission is, I just don't know how to get started on it?
Yeah, it could benefit you that way. And a lot of people who think they know what their soul's mission is, a lot of people use spiritual jargon to appear like they are, progressed, or they're superior to others, or whatever. And again, people can say whatever they want, but behavioral patterns and people's lives reflect if they've done the work or not. So, and those people usually point at other people, you haven't done the work or whatever. And it's not like that. If you haven't done the work and you go around saying, I know what my soul's purpose is, you'll never manifest it. It will never happen, because it's just, if you haven't worked on yourself, it stops a whole lot of things. And it doesn't matter if you say the words, if you repeat them until you believe them, because that's another thing toxic people do. They repeat these words about themselves and other people that they target, and they literally believe that that's the truth. And they need to do that. They need to do that to keep themselves feeling superior. And then when it's somebody they've targeted, whether it's the truth or not about somebody, and it's usually not, it's so that they can remain feeling superior inside over the person they feel envy and jealous of. They'll tell themselves, this person's life is not as good as mine. This person doesn't have as much money as I do. This person's life is boring. Oh, their business is terrible. And they have no idea what that person that they're targeting, what their life is really about. You know what I mean? But they need to tell themselves this, because when they do, then this automatically lifts them up into a superior position where they can, imaginarily feel that they're better than, and it's a lie to themselves. So all this to say, people can lie to themselves all they want, but if they haven't done the work, they will not manifest anything about what they think is their life, their lives, what they're supposed to be doing with it. They just won't. They just won't. It won't work out that way.
Yeah, it's like people will say to me they like watching my shows because there's authenticity and integrity to it. I'm not just
Absolutely.
sitting there and agreeing with everything someone says, or going, oh, you had this, let me one up you, or let me,
Right.
tell you that. And so it's like I keep the focus more over there. And so everyone's like, yeah, we see it and that's what we like. And I didn't even realize I was doing it in that way. And so it kind of touched me when I heard that. And I was like, I'm really glad that's how I'm being perceived.
Right. Right. In authenticity, that people are seeing the authentic Michael, and it feels good when people see that. Um, we're all mirrors to other people. So somebody that has this goodness inside of them will see that in you. They'll see that in you, and likewise, people that do not have goodness inside of you, of them, they will not see you that way either. They will be picking you apart. They'll be, trying to, and it's not for everybody. Toxic people target people. And when they target people, again, it's usually out of jealousy and envy, or that person has something that they don't have. So if somebody sees you, that you are filled with light, and that you are a person that other people like. And I believe that because what you told me about your childhood and what you told me about as an adult, that people come to you and they're comfortable with you and they want to, talk to you and tell you about their things that they're going through, their, experiences, whatever. You being like that means that you are full of light. And people trust you, and they can feel comfortable with you, right?
Right.
That also leaves you open to be targeted by people that don't have light in them, by people that want what you have, but they can't embody it. So people will, copy you, they'll study you, toxic people. They will try every which way to be you and at the same time want to destroy you so they don't have to feel that envy and jealousy anymore. And they could feel like in their delusions that they are you now. And I've seen people that are really sickly toxic do this their entire life. They will waste their entire life, their entire energy. They'll do this day after day after day after day. And they will try to embody something they never were and never will be. And they cannot appreciate you or love you for what you are. They would rather destroy you and take what you are. And it's a very dark thing. And there's a lot of people like that in this world, unfortunately, you know?
Yeah, and I kind of can't help wondering, there's a term floating around where people refer to other people as like NPCs, non-playable characters. They took it from the gaming world.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, these people that you're talking about that are like the ones that can't be anything else and can't grow because they don't want to do their work, would those be classified if we were to label? And I'm not saying I want to label, but I'm just saying for clarity for people, would you consider those an NPC?
Okay. What did you say exactly an NPC means?
Non-playable character, it means it's just a shell of a person going through life.
Life. You know, that's to me just another way of putting a label on toxic people, you know, and you can say these are also traits that people in the cluster B, narcissistic people, sociopathic people. Um, I would say that those kind of characteristics are in them as well, because when you do not work on yourself and you blame everything on everyone else, everybody else is the problem, everybody else is the evil one, everybody else is the one that's horrible, and you don't see that you have created a lot of your own mess and you never look within because you can't self-reflect, then you are stuck. Then you are going through life as one of these people that you said, that you are not growing, that you are not going to grow emotionally, and some people are happy there because the wall that they've created to where they cannot look at themselves is a form of protection for them, for their ego. Their egos are so fragile, and they get hurt so easily by any kind of rejection or any kind of affront. If somebody doesn't open the door for them at a store that isn't even with them, they will totally unload on that person, maybe not in person, but privately, or maybe they'll go and report about it on, social media. Can you believe this person didn't even open the door for me? And it's not anybody's business to have to open the door, a man to open a door for a woman. It's not, they're not required to do that. How do you know if this man has a back injury, or if this man has arthritis, or if this man is recovering from a sports injury? It is not your place to hate on a man and then blast it out publicly because you have no emotional regulation. If this man didn't open a damn door for you. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, and I agree. And it leads to I think a really good and powerful final question for tonight, and that is there a final blessing that you would offer to anyone who's ready to start the process in alchemizing their life in 2026?
Yeah, there is. First of all, because we really didn't get into it, do look up the 4 stages of Jung's alchemizing, and what it means. Do that. But my blessing would be to make a decision and make a choice to be the best you. Coming this year, stop focusing on everything outside of yourself. And I know that is so hard when you're bombarded with bad news, when you go on social media and everything you see is pretty depressing, or people complaining about things and going through hardships, and a lot of people judging other people without knowing what other people are going through and passing judgment on them based on whatever. And a lot of it is their own projection as well. So my blessing, my wish is that people start turning within this year and really taking inventory of what it is that they have to heal. Because going outside and pointing the finger and saying this needs to change and that needs to change, we all know what needs to be changed outside of ourselves, right? We're all pretty good at judging and discerning what's wrong in the world and what's wrong with other people, right? But I want you to take the courage to look inside. I want everyone to take the courage this year to step back from what's going on outside and make the focus on yourself. Because when you do that and you put your time and your effort and all the love you have to give to yourself, or even how to figure out how to love yourself, right? You are automatically making the world a better place, because you're raising the energy one person at a time instead of it dragging down. And let me just say what I mean about that. Everything bad that's happening in our world right now, the wars, the hatred, people not being taken care of, the whole everything that's going on, people being hated on for their own personal beliefs, their own personal who they love, whatever it is. All of this is fear related. And what does fear do? Fear lowers all of our energy. It sucks it out of us. It makes us unhealthy. It makes us toxic. Everything that's going on right now is designed to make all of us fear, even those of us that have chosen consciously or unconsciously love at our core. Everything happening is designed to make all of that go away. For fear to come into us, to make all of the communal energy low. And when that happens, then we really lose the fight. So if everybody, we already know we can't change the world. Even if you're out there being an activist, and we can still be an activist behind the scenes, we don't have to, telegraph about what we're doing. But what we need to do is look at ourselves, because that's how we're going to combat this fear. We're going to keep our love at our core. And that's what I want for everybody. That's my blessing, that I hope everybody starts focusing on themselves, and one person at a time heals from their trauma, loses their fear, and starts getting all of their energy back that belongs to them, that they haven't given away to the fear. That's it.
Thank you for that. And where can people reach out to you if they have questions or want to do work with you?
You can reach out to me on my website. I don't know if you can. I think that's in the bio. You put my website in your bio, right?
Yes.
So you can contact me through my website. You can send me an email to regina@gmail.com. Or you can friend me on Facebook. I have a business page there. Um, Again, I'm getting filled up on Facebook, and I really don't know if I'm going to turn it to business mode or not. I have very little people that I can accept as friends at this point. But you can also, send me a message through there too, and we can go from there. I'd love to help anybody who is ready to actually use the tools I give you. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. And, well, hold on. Something. Okay, so we have a comment here for you.
Hmm.
And it says, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Regina. With that said, you cannot change the world. The only thing you can change is yourself. Well, by changing yourself, you're changing the world.
That's right. That's exactly the way it works. People think they have to do other things outside of themselves to change the world. And then they're frustrated when it's not enough change, when it seems that nothing's changing. And that's why we have to start looking within ourselves and making the change inside first. If we don't, there's always going to be people that are, trying to control who other people can love. There's always going to be people trying to control, we see what's going on now. I don't even have to get into it. It's just not a good thing. And a lot of people are going to heal their depression, heal their anxiety, and heal their stress if they start working on themselves. Depression is things of the past we can't change. And anxiety is things of the future that we're worried about. So when we stop looking in those places and we mindfully come back to ourselves and what we need to change, changes everything in our world.
Yes, I agree. And I actually have a message for you, Regina.
Okay.
And gonna try and get through it. It's sometimes I get emotional with it, but
Aw.
from my heart and the heart of my show to you, thank you for what you're doing for humanity.
Thank you. Thank you. That's special. It means a lot to me. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me. And I hope I can come back again sometime.
I hope so too. We'll have to talk and find out a good time that fits our schedules.
Sounds great. I'm down for it. You're my family now, and I realize that you are part of the soul family. So let's keep in touch and do it again.
Yes, thank you. And I feel honored. And
Me
with
too.
that, we are going to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you for tuning in to season 4, episode 1. And stay tuned because there's more episodes to come. And with that, we will go to the outro. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Good night.